Hello, the Pioneer viewers. It's good to be back again. Today we will discuss the latest Ukrainian attack on Russia. In recent days, Ukrainian armed forces have plunged Russia's border cities into darkness. On the night of October the 5th, Belgorod and Bryansk were plunged into darkness simultaneously. Power lines collapsed, generators failed to kick in, and tens of thousands of people were left in the dark as winter approaches. This was not just a power outage, it was a targeted energy blackout hitting two border regions simultaneously. The numbers were clear in the first hours. In Belgorod Oblast alone, approximately 40,000 people were left without electricity. Network connections were cut in 7 municipalities, and emergency services reported significant damage. Belgorod Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov stated around midnight that the energy infrastructure had suffered serious damage and that some hospitals had switched to backup power units. The picture updated at dawn. Partial outages continued in 24 settlements with 5,400 people still without power. Meanwhile, an explosion and fire were reported at the Klinsky thermal power plant in Bryansk. Citywide power and heat outages were reported. Local sources mentioned a combined missile and drone attack on the facility, with footage showing flames engulfing the chimney. So, what's the latest? Let's take a look together. The Pioneer is back. Don't forget that you can support us by subscribing and liking our videos in celebration of our return. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that 251 Ukrainian UAVs were shot down overnight. This figure highlights the scale of the attack and the burden on Russian air defenses. At the same time, more than 40 UAVs were reported in the skies over Crimea, and interception flights were carried out over the Black Sea. In particular, regional authorities in Belgorod announced that intense drone and artillery fire had continued for days. In the latest wave, more than 150 drones and dozens of munitions were intercepted. This official tally confirms a new wave of attacks targeting Russia's network nodes, transformer stations, and thermal power plants. The answer to the questions, what was different tonight and why did the failure headline on the Russian borderlines emerge this time before winter, can be summarized in 2 points. First, two critical border areas were hit with the same set of targets on the same night. Second, the disruption of the Russian logistical defense cycle due to the spread of the network effect from the city scale to the regional scale. The first hour in Belgorod showed how sensitive points in the civilian infrastructure were rendered ineffective one after another. Images shared in regional media showed an explosion near the Lak transformer station, followed by part of the city center plunging into darkness and partial power restoration in the same area at dawn. Regional authorities were able to lift the drone threat alert, which had lasted more than 25 hours, on the morning of October the 6th. This indicates that air defense and repair crews have been working in a constant state of alert, and that power circuits are being gradually reconnected amid concerns about a second wave. Discussions such as closing shopping centers in Belgorod, moving classes to online platforms, and restricting entry to high-risk areas had already been in place since the end of the summer. This new wave brought the administration's security measures to the center of civilian daily life. The fire at the Klinsky facility in Bryansk, meanwhile, signaled a fragile moment for regional heating and distribution networks. Regional media and eyewitnesses reported an explosion in the plant's open distribution area, followed by a citywide outage that also affected heating circuits. The shutdown of thermal nodes like Minsky, which supply power from the border to the front lines, affect not only homes but also the fixed energy needs of border security and air defense positions. Generators can serve as a buffer during outages, but the fuel replenishment and maintenance cycle places an additional burden on units operating under constant alert. Northern network nodes were being eliminated. In other words, the picture shows simultaneous pressure being applied on Ukraine's energy logistics axis. There is no need to exaggerate the strategic importance of these attacks, but it would be unrealistic to downplay them either. Moscow's own energy giants have sent signals confirming the impact of this pressure on the economy. It is a very interesting piece of data that since August 2025, 16 of Russia's 38 refineries have been targeted by various unmanned systems, fighting profiles, and sabotage clusters. This figure roughly proves that nearly half of Russian energy facilities are now being spent on the front lines and rear areas of this war. These figures are enough to say that the Kyiv administration has shaped a real and symmetrical response to the energy war that Moscow promised to escalate again towards the end of the year, and that it did so with a planned rhythm rather than hit and run tactics. Because the chain reaction of outages doesn't end with lights going out. When transformer fires and water pressure loss occur simultaneously, boiler systems shut down, heating circuits are disabled, sewage pumping stations become clogged, and internal nodes are limited by battery life. This reminds us once again that energy is not just about electricity meters. It is the nervous system of urban life in Russia. From Ukraine's perspective, the target set is consistent. Short-range FPV swarms and munitions target transformer open distribution sites along the border. Deeper inside, terminal refinery networks are being hit by kamikaze UAVs and possible flight profiles. This combination challenges the constant power dependency of radar and air defense consoles on the front lines and disrupts the fuel supply chain. The Russian side's statement that 251 UAVs were shot down highlights the numerical scale of the attacks while also magnifying the ammunition and effort expended by the defense. The 25-hour continuous UAV threat alert is an example of this. There are differing narratives regarding population movements in border towns. While social media posts claim more people are leaving the city, official statements focus on risk management rather than evacuation. Verified data is scarce, but the impact of prolonged power outages on home heating and internet infrastructure before winter could increase voluntary temporary departures. This partial slowdown in the Belgrade-Kursk-Bryansk triangle, combined with Ukrainian pressure in the Sumy and Kharkiv sectors, could ultimately create tactical gaps due to hourly delays in Russia's ammunition fuel cycle at the front. The first signs of this scenario have already become apparent with the recent large-scale reciprocal airstrikes and the prominence of railway sabotage headlines. Energy pressure is the common denominator of these headlines. The answer to why Ukraine is now intensifying its attacks lies in the winter calendar. Kyiv has been openly stating its energy retaliation doctrine for months and, as winter approaches, aims to create a permanent capacity gap in the Russian side's refinery storage network chain. Transneft's production cut warning confirms the economic mechanisms of this strategy. When power outages occurred in Klinsky and Belgorod in the north, border defense and supply rhythms were disrupted. When these two axes are hit by the same wave, small but cumulative disruptions occur on the front line, which can be described as fading in spirits. In military terms, this translates into a decrease in the turnover rate of the defense supply repair trade and a lengthening of the decision cycle. Missed opportunities in the targeting cycle due to radio silence or energy fluctuations increase, and units are forced to maintain a wider buffer based on the assumption of unexpected interruptions. This reduces the Russian army's firepower intensity. So, what do you think? How should Ukraine's attacks on energy infrastructure be assessed? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read and value your opinions.